Hi everyone, welcome. And today we are going to talk about the Android Assistant and the app actions, and basically how you can use the Google Assistant for providing the information to the user much faster and quicker. So a bit about myself. I am an Android developer at Explicity. We are a creative tech agency and we are based in the Netherlands and also here in New York. I am a Google developer expert. I'm a Google developer expert for the Assistant, and I also love traveling around the world to help other developers learn more and just the community events. So about the agenda today, we're going to see basically the what, the why and the how. And the what, it includes both the Android side and also the Assistant side. The why you should actually invest your time on enabling your Android application to the Google Assistant. The how it works, how you can build it, how you can test it, and how you can deploy it finally. So I don't really like doing having assumptions at the beginning, but I will assume that we know what the Android is. So I'll just jump directly to the Google Assistant. The Google Assistant is the bot that will reply to you every time that you say, "Okay, Google." And even though it has like a lot of functionalities, it's still quite limited. So for the Google Assistant, you can actually create apps, which is conversational apps. And those are called actions on Google. So the actions on Google are conversational apps that you can build, and they just extend the functionality of the Google Assistant. So what are the app actions? The app actions is the way that you can enable your application to the Google Assistant and just make it more visible, because now your application and the Assistant do not connect at any point. There are two ways that you can make that connection with the Google Assistant. The first one is with the deep linking. So let's say here at this example, the user says specifically that they want a pizza from your app. So what you can do instead is to just grab the intent from the user and all the parameters that the user provides you with, and then have a deep link in your app that it will just launch your application. Another way to do that is using slices. So slices are pieces of UI that are interactive, and they provide the information that the user is looking for. And the app actions are not only for the Google Assistant, but they are also for the search, for the Google search, and also the launcher. So you can see here, if you actually search for a movie, how easy it is for the user to just find exactly what he is looking for without having to go through a bunch of steps, as we're going to see in a bit. So what are the slices? Slices are small, standalone, interactive pieces of UI. This is the road path, how it looks for the user right now if they want to book the tickets from your application. So they have to first unlock their phone, search for the app, navigate to the components, search for that, search for the time, search for probably nearby locations, and then finally make a purchase for that movie at that time that they want. And these are like 8 or 9 steps, could be even more if you had more options. With the app actions though, you can just limit that time to the minimum. And instead of having to go through all of those steps, the user can just say that, okay, so I want the tickets for that movie at that time, and then you already have the location, so you can just provide exactly what the user needs at that point. And instead of having 8 or 9 steps, you can just have 3 steps. App actions are not to be confused in general with the actions on Google. There are a lot of differences. Actually, they're completely different. So the actions on Google, or for short AOG, are conversational apps, while the app actions are basically your apps that they are enabled through the Google Assistant. On the other hand, the actions on Google, the app actions, will be shown to the user only if the user already has that application installed to their phones. The actions on Google, on the other side, are available to everyone that has the Google Assistant. So there is no need for the user to do something, it's just there. Well, with the app actions, it's just making your app visible, but of course it must be already enabled. So why app actions? This is just for the past quarters, and you can see here that voice market is an emerging market. It's getting a lot of attention, and there are companies like multi-million companies that invest a lot of money in that, because voice is much easier for the user to use. So the first thing that we learn to do is not typing. Maybe nowadays kids, I'm not quite sure, but the first thing that you learn to do is talk. When you have a new baby, you talk to it, you don't type to it, you don't text it. So it's much easier for the user to just talk to a device than actually grab their phone and start typing. It's also much easier because it enables the user to multitask. You don't really have to focus on something. You can just be doing laundry and ask the Google Assistant to send that email. That email, of course, can be sent from your app. So these numbers are just for the smart speakers that are over there. And fortunately or unfortunately, there are so many devices that are coming up with the Google Assistant, and not only, that it's already there. So from vacuum cleaners to bathtubs and microwaves, basically everyone now comes with the Google Assistant enabled, and it's just a much easier step for you to get more customers like this. While the app actions don't bring your app to every device, they do make it more visible. So as you would enable, I don't know, like support for tablets, for instance, this is also something that you can do in order to make sure that the user can use it in multiple devices and not just their phones. A good example is that if you have a to-do list, like an app that has a to-do list, then the user now really have to grab their phones and start making a new to-do. But if you already have like your groceries bag full and you're just walking, you really don't want to do that. So you can just say like, okay, from my to-do list, add this, and they will just be there. And you don't really care for which device it's actually going to hear it. If the user has it enabled has it installed in one of their Android devices that have connected to the Google Assistant, the user can be talking to a vacuum cleaner and it will still launch the Android application on their phone. If that vacuum cleaner, of course, has a microphone, right? So moving forward, that's a disclaimer. The app actions are still in developer preview. That means that you cannot just go to the Play console and just upload an app that has the actions already there. But that doesn't mean that you cannot just start getting ready for that. It's also available only for the US English, and as we will going to see, there are multiple intents, but only one is actually available right now from all of this. So let's see a bit how it works. So this is how it works. The user will say something to any Google Assistant device. the Google Assistant will just grab the intent of the user and it will search for an actions.xml in all of the applications that have it in their Android manifest. We will see more about this later, but basically it just searches for the app. If it finds an app that can fulfill this action, then it will go to the Android app. You will handle it there in order to provide all of the data that you want to your user. If it slices, then it will just go to the Google Assistant again so that the Google Assistant can display it. Otherwise, it will just launch the Android application and it will be shown to the user's device. So we talked about intents. Is it like for any intent? It's a yes and no answer. They have a lot of built-in intents. And the built-in intents that are currently there are mostly for applications, for the everyday applications. So it's like food ordering, ride sharing, games, and stuff like that. And if you go to the built-in intents in the documentation, you can see that it has some example queries. How can the user actually ask for that app, or how to do that? And then it has also some fields that are required from the Google Assistant. So here you will find all the details that you need to put to your actions.xml in order to figure out how you can enable your app. But if you look closely through all of the ordering food and ordering cabs intents, you will see here that there is an open app feature intent. And then intent, of course, with that intent, you can just open basically whatever screen you want in your application. So you can build, you can just have any action for any of deep links in your application. One of the biggest problems in brackets that will come with that is that you need. It doesn't really matter if you have like a clean architecture, MVI, MVVM, whatever you want. But if you remember here, slices are small and standalone interactive pieces of UI. And that standalone is the key word for the architecture. If you don't have a solid architecture, and if you have steps and you're trying to get your user to the step 3, then it's really hard to get all the dependencies that you need. Also, it's very important to make sure that you don't really rely on a setting of the user, for instance. Before starting building your app actions, you have to make sure that what you're trying to build can be a standalone component. It doesn't have any other dependencies to the rest of the code, or to settings, or to features, to other features, or to whatever. So my personal favorite is the Jetpack, the MVVM. I find it really good, a good start, especially if you're not very familiar with architecturing applications. It's very straightforward. It's really easy for you to keep on track and to just have everything separate, so that the UI will have very specific tasks. The view model will also have very specific tasks, and then you don't really have the connection like, oh, will that break? So we talked about that. How do you build this and how you test it, especially since it's still at the developer preview? Okay, that's like jumped a bit. This is your spaghetti code. Like, everyone loves spaghetti, just not in their code base. Just remember that before starting building something. And the first step of building is having the deep links. And For that, I do recommend the plugin that is in the Android Studio, and it's called the Applinks Assistant. So the Applinks Assistant has like 5 steps, I think, and you really go through each of one step to find out what to do. So here you can see the first step is to provide the mapping. The second task is to provide the activity that you actually want to launch when the deep link will be met. And then, of course, you have to make your website also ready for getting those intents in case the application is not already there. And last but not least is, of course, to test the implementation and make sure that it works. A very important part here, and something that a lot of people are missing, is that you have to test it not just after you've built it and you created a login user and you've set all the settings correctly and you've went all the steps. Like, you really have to test it with like no cache at all. If the user just starts this with, like, if they just install it and they just launch that deep link, what will happen? Because if you have any dependencies in there, like, oh, you haven't set the language, so I don't know the language, and then I will crash. And that's the simplest example. So in order to avoid all this, make sure that you do test. You test with cache, you test without cache, with user logged in or logged out or whatever. And this is how it looks like when the user, like from the user perspective. So if the user sees the deep link, if they have the app, then the app will be launched. Otherwise, the website that you said in the previous steps, this will be like called and showed to the user. And the slices. Slices are just optional. They are a more powerful way to make your app action a bit more visible. Because yeah, it's fine if you just have the deep link over there and you launch it. But in the example with the movie tickets, that's not the best experience that you can provide to the user. Let's say that the user is just searching in their launcher about those tickets. If you only have the deep link, then this will not show there. Because from the launcher, you cannot just create a deep link and open another application. So you really need the slices over there. And you first need the dependencies, of course, and after the dependencies, there is a wizard. In the wizard, there is a class that you can create. It will give you all the code that you need to get started with. Of course, you have to make it to the Android manifest clear that, hey, I have a slice and you have to show this, so that the Android manifest knows how to connect all this. And then you have to go to the onBind slice method in the slice provider that you created before and say that those links map those things. For testing them, there is also a tool. It's an ADB tool, and it's called like Slice Viewer. The documentation for the Slice Viewer is incredible. It's very straightforward. It's really easy to do. So I will really recommend you to just go to that website and just check it out. And the step 2 is to tell the assistant how to use your app. So the previous 2 is probably things that you might already know because it's not something new. The magic happens from here and afterwards. So if you remember, we did talk about an Actions XML. That Actions XML is the resources folder under the XML folder. And what it does, it's basically telling the Android assistant how to map everything to the user's intent. So how you can connect it, of course, it's also from the Android manifest. So after we connect it, we need to find out the schema. And the schema is, it has an intent name, always, and that intent name has to match exactly the built-in intents that we saw before. After that, you have the fulfillment. And after that, you have the URL that it will fulfill that fulfillment. For each intent, it has its own schema, its own tags, and its own fields that they are required to be there in order for the Google Assistant to be able to help the user appropriately. So you can see over here that if you want to use, for instance, the create taxi reservation intent, then you need to have the drop-off location field. Like, this is not something optional, it's mandatory. If you don't have it there, the Google Assistant cannot fulfill the user's request, so it will never show your action over there. Optimizing your app for the Assistant is also something optional, but you need to make sure that the Google Assistant is capable of handling things whatever the situation of the user is in the current app. So the user might already be in the app, like have it open, it might be in the background, it might be already in the navigation flow. So you have to optimize your application to make sure that the Google Assistant can just, it can ensure a seamless experience, basically. So there are three things that you can do. The first one is on the activity. There is a new method, it's called onProvide Assistant Content, and it basically gives information to the Google Assistant about the current foreground UI and activity that are open. Oops. The other one is the Firebase App Index API. And this is to help Google proactively suggesting your app application to the users. So there is also a great recommendation for that. It's I think that they also have a plugin that you can just put for the Android Studio and then follow again steps in order to make sure that Google can actually suggest your application whenever the user is searching for something. And finally, we have the search action. And the search action is only if you have search functionality in your applications. So if you're not doing any search in your application, this does not apply to your app. But if you do have a search functionality there, you need to make sure that you implement this Android intent so that Google can provide a fallback mechanism in case something goes wrong. Testing and deploying, guess what? There is a plugin for that. The App Actions test tool, it doesn't have the best reviews. I did use it once and it was okay, so I'm not quite sure what the reviews are for. But you can still install it, and after you install it, it looks something like this. So then you can just see again that it's just steps and fields that you have to fill in, and then it will just tell you if something is not matching. The biggest challenge here is actually before you launch this screen, the second screen. So in the first screen already, it's checking your action schema to make sure that all the fields that are mandatory are there. Since it's really new, you don't really have a lot of help besides the documentation. But the documentation, of course, it has its pitfalls. So it's easy to find where to put its tag, but it's not always easy to find exactly which tag you need. So this one is also really good, but it's, yeah, it has its problems. So for deploying, as we mentioned before, it's it's still in the development preview, which means that you cannot just enable it in the Play console. But of course, there is a form for that to say that you're interested in doing so. If you have the form, you should already have the APK ready. And after the form, you can just go to the Google console. After you get the OK, of course, you can go to the Play console, and then you can just launch the application still at the not in private mode and not in public. I'm not quite sure about that for the public mode, but I don't think that it's still available. So before going here, I know that it's the setup is not ideal. It doesn't so. Okay. Anyway, the setup is not ideal for questions, so I want to enable the questions from over here, but it doesn't want to work for some reason. To rewind, so first of all, we saw what is the Google Assistant? The Google Assistant is the bot that replies to you. The actions on Google on the other side is how you can extend the Google Assistant. And the app actions is how you can extend your app to be on the Google Assistant. Why? We did say that the voice market is constantly rising. There are more and more devices that are coming in with a Google Assistant enabled. So it's going to be a huge step for your app to be ready when this is going public. How it works, we saw the graph, how the intent goes from the user to the Google Assistant, and then it's matching it with the actions.xml, and then if it's a slice, it goes back to the Google Assistant, otherwise it just goes straight to the user. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please use the microphone over there.